I'm back for one video only to teach you how to make a skirt. Now, I actually didn't make this skirt, but we're going to learn how to make a skirt inspired by this skirt, which is called the Cara skirt by Brandy Melville. Now, Brandy Melville is a brand that a lot of their clothes only come in one size fits all, which isn't true because one size doesn't fit all, because this is very rigid. This wouldn't fit a lot of people. I'm quite fortunate in that these skirts fit me really well, and that's why I like them, and that's why I've bought so many of this particular skirt in different patterns. But I've been sewing a lot during lockdown, and I've been recreating this skirt a lot because I buy a lot of them, I wear a lot of them. I think they look really flattering, and also like they're really quite easy. I had a few requests on my Instagram of people asking me if I could teach them how to make this skirt. So I thought, caution to the wind, let's do it. Let's try and make this skirt together. I'm going to try and explain things in the easiest way possible. If you're a complete beginner to sewing, I think you'll still be able to follow this pattern. You might need to read over a few things a few times. You might need to outsource, like say for example I say put in an invisible zip. I'll explain it as best as I can, but if you search for that phrase on YouTube, like how to put in an invisible zip, there'll be like some like lovely people who've made videos which are like 10 minutes long explaining exactly how, very detailed, very slow, on how to do that particular step, which will be the same way that I'm doing it here as well. So the first thing we're going to do is make the pattern. I actually never sew with a pattern. What I usually like to do, and this is my best tip for everybody, is if you want to start sewing your own clothes, look at the clothes you already have in your wardrobe, especially the ones that you like how they fit you, you like the way that they are shaped, you like the sleeve on a certain thing. Turn your clothes inside out and just study how they're constructed. What have they done? You know, is it completely flat piece of fabric, or do they have like darts, which is a small piece of gathering of fabric that will help shape it to the human body, which isn't flat like a board but has got some more contours and shapes to it. Have they added like padding, like shoulder pads or something like that in there? You'll learn so much just by looking at the insides of your clothes inside out, see how they're attached and seamed, and I often make patterns just by kind of tracing around clothes I've already got and sewing them together and adjusting little bits as I go. That being said, you can draft a pattern of a garment, and basically what I've done is I've put together an adaptable pattern that I think will work for you. And please, if you try this tutorial and these measurements work for you and the pattern works for you, please let me know, and also if something needs changing about it, also let me know. I believe that this should work, but I won't know until you guys try it. So without further ado, what you're going to need to do first of all, step one, is we're going to take our waist measurements and our hip measurements. To take your waist measurement, basically you'll need a tape measure. If you don't have a tape measure, take a piece of string or a ribbon or some, God, I really shouldn't have changed the camera before I did this angle. Take a piece of string and then you can hold it up either to a straight ruler that you have, or even if you search on your computer, iruler.com, you can turn your computer screen into a ruler and hold up a piece of string against that, and then when you get to the end of the screen you keep on bringing it across, and that's the way you can measure things without a tape measure. Right, but we need your waist measurement. So your waist measurement is usually around your kind of navel. Depending on your body type, it might be the narrowest part of your waist. You want to do it actually probably without clothes on. I would say not breathing in and not breathing super far out, but maybe just like almost completely breathing far out but then a little bit in. Whatever is going to be comfortable for you, basically. If you really don't like super tight stuff, then maybe breathe out a little bit. If you, I don't know, if you like that feeling of it being really uncomfortably tight, but you can breathe in, I guess, but get a waist measurement that you think is going to be natural and snug, nice and fit to you and be comfortable to wear. So for me it's 25 inches is what mine will come out as. Okay, and then you're going to want to do your hip, and your hip is usually generally the largest part of your like around your bum, but the largest kind of part. So you take that measurement too, which is around here. I've got a diagram on the screen so that should help you as well. And my hip measurement was 35 inches. And then the final thing you're going to want to do is take a measurement from your waistline, so where you took your waist measurement from / where you want the top of your skirt to be, and then basically bring it down to where you think you want the bottom of your skirt to be. Now the bottom of the skirt that I've made and the bottom of the skirt of the Brandy Melvilles that I've made is 15.5 inches. Bear in mind that if you maybe have a slightly larger hip or a larger bum, the more your kind of bum will come out will mean that the back of the skirt will hike up a little bit. So you want to kind of factor for a skirt length that's going to be comfortable for you. I would always say, like, it doesn't actually matter how long you make your skirt put on an extra few centimetres or inches. And you can always hem a skirt, you can always take away, but you can never add on, so make it a little bit longer if you're a little bit worried. And when you're eventually trying it on, when you're almost finished and the last thing to do is to hem it, then you can see actually where do I want it to fall. So mine's going to be 15.5 inches, yours can be whatever you like. Isn't this tape measure so cute? And the final measurement you're going to want to take is the measurement between your waistline and your hip line. So between where you took your first measurement and your second measurement, how long is that? Once you have all of these measurements, you're going to basically have to apply a sum of maths to them. Don't click off, don't run away. I don't like maths, I'm not very good at maths. Although I managed to make this tutorial, so maybe actually I'm quite good at maths, I don't know. Basically, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to take each of your numbers and, okay, so there's going to be maths including alphabet letters such as X, Y, and so on. I know, don't click away. You can do this, I promise. It's not, it's going to be okay, I promise. Right, there are 3 pieces of pattern that you need to draft. There's piece A and C, and this is this panel here and this panel here. There is piece B, which is the big front panel of the skirt, and then on the back there is pieces D and E, which is 2 pieces on either side of the back of the skirt. And so what you're going to do is you're going to apply your measurements. So we're going to call your waist measurement X, your hip measurement is Y, the measurement vertically between your waist and your hip is called P, the length of your skirt is called G, and then the final calculation is going to be the bottom circumference of your skirt, and that is going to be called M. And basically what you need to do is you need to get your pen and paper out and you need to copy on a bit of paper all of the pieces of the pattern that I have drawn out for you, and you're going to look at the little sum at each section of the pattern and you're going to times the letter by the percent. And I usually do this by going into Excel and just typing in number and then asterisk star is times and then type in the percentage and then it will give you the percentage. But basically you want to find, say for example, 40% of your waist measurement. You're going to want to find 10% of your hip measurement and so on for each of the different sections of the different part of the pattern, okay? So we're going to do it together. So you can see this one here is pieces A and C. This one here is piece B, and this one here is pieces D and E. And all you're going to do is follow the chart that I've made. So up here, this is going to be X, which is your waist measurement times 6%. So that is, for me, what is 6% of 25? What is 25 times 6%? That is 1.5. You take your P measurement, which is the distance down between your waist and your hip. For me, that is 7.5. And then from, you see this is your P. And then from this point to the outer edge here, that is your Y. So that's your hip, right? And this is Y times 10%. So what is my hip measurement? Is Y, which is 35. 35 times 10% is 3.5. The entire top to bottom should be how long you want your skirt to be, so that is 15.5. And then the bottom is a little bit more complicated, but not really. This is your M, and how to get M is basically, M is your hip measurement Y, times by 113. So for me that's 39.5. Now you're going to take 39.5, which is M, and times that by 11.3. And for me that is 4.5. And there you go, that's your first pattern with all the measurements set out, okay? And you're going to carry on and do that for part B and part D and E. The next step, of course, is basically sellotape together loads and loads of bits of paper, and what you're going to want to do is make a big bit of paper, or if you've got newspaper that works really well as well. Now you've got your little sketch here, and this has got all of your measurements that you've done out for yourself, and you're going to make pieces A and C, B and D and E. So you're going to cut out 3 bits of pattern using these measurements. So we're going to do piece A/C first, which is this one. Get your tape measure going. So for piece A and C, the first thing we know is how long it is top to bottom and how wide it is across the bottom. So you're going to want to go basically, for me, my bottom edge, my M measurement for this calculation, so M times 11.3% is 4.5 inches. So what I'm going to do is go along here and see where does 4.5 inches lie. That is, so you can see from the corner of my paper to 4.5 inches, that is here. So I've just put a little mark here, and then we know upwards, based on our calculations, the whole skirt length is 15.5 inches. So what you're going to do is go up the long edge of the skirt, well, of the paper, whatever you're drawing on. Go up 15.5 inches, that is here. And then make a little mark up there. So this is basically how big the piece of pattern is going to be. The next thing we need to do is along this long edge here, because we know that's the widest point of your pattern, and we know that this side is actually basically just a straight edge. It's kind of like a right angle, so actually it's fine to work with the corner of the paper. And we know that 7.5 inches down from the top, so let's say that this is the top and this is the bottom. So from the top downwards, go 7.5 inches down, that is here, and then we know that basically this is P and this is where Y starts crossways. Alright? Are you with me? I hope you are. So my top measurement, which is my X times 6%, my first measurement that I'll have done, is 1.5 inches across. So all you do is go across 1.5 inches, make a little mark, and then you can basically just draw that line. There we go, first line drawn, okay? And then you're going to go from your 7.5 down, which is your hip measurement, that is your Y, times 10%. For me, that is 3.5 inches. So you're going to kind of go at a right angle, mark out that dot there, that is 3.5 inches. And then you already know that that's 4.5 inches for me, that is my bottom piece. So all you want to do now really is just kind of connect, go from here to here to here, and then that is your first piece of pattern. So if you're good at sketching, I mean, the thing is, this is supposed to be a little bit of a curved line. You can go, I guess you can go straight though, I mean, I don't think it really makes a difference. Yeah, you see, it doesn't go exactly straight. This is a little bit further up, so all you're going to want to do really is just kind of sketch out a curved line. You know you're coming into land here. Gets a little bit straighter. Perfect! This is going to be your first pattern piece. Alright. And then you're going to do the exact same for all of your other pattern pieces. Something really important will happen with piece D and E, so before you sketch it out, make sure you watch this next bit, okay? So you should be able to see here, we've got piece, this is piece A and C, and then this one in the middle is piece B, and what I found was really useful for doing piece B is just simply dotting a line down the middle point of this piece, and this will make it easier for you to make sure that either side of it is even. If you're really clever, you can just draft out half of this pattern and then cut your fabric on a fold so you get 2 matching pieces, but if that sounds like what the heck are you talking about, then just do one piece and cut around one piece, but try and make sure each side of it is as even as possible, and you can do that by just doing a dotted center line and make sure that, so this measurement, for example, for me it was 11 inches, so that's going to be 5.5 inches, and that's going to be 5.5 inches. This has got to be 5 inches, it's got to be 5 inches if my total top is 10. You know what I mean. Okay, on to piece D and E. So for piece D and E, you'll actually see that basically we're going to do darts on the back of piece D and E, and these darts are things that will help, they'll be pinched in, and it will help to shape the skirt to make it more flattering around your your bum is here. It's obviously, it's not flat, it goes like down and then your bum comes out, right? So these darts are going to help the fabric follow the line of your body. So for your top measurement on pieces D and E is going to be X times 24% plus 2.5 inches, okay? And that is going to give you your extra 2.5 inches for adding in darts. So for me, mine came out as 6, and we actually need to add 2.5 to this. So this is going to be 6, 7, 8.5 instead. So this is 8.5. All right? All right, everybody, this is your pattern. This is your piece A and C. This is your piece B, and this is your piece D and E. And for me, it took 8 pieces of A4 paper to draft up the pattern. If you have newspaper, again, it's obviously super easy. If you're super professional, you have like pattern drafting paper, but A4 paper and a bit of sellotape is all you need. What we're gonna do now is cut out all of the pieces. Okay, there we go. All of our pattern pieces are cut out. This is piece B, this is piece D and E, and then this is piece A and C. And that is the end of all the maths. So that's it. If you made it this far, and please don't just give up, please try. If you get stuck on it and the maths, please just send me a DM on Instagram. I'll see it, I'll be able to reply and help you. I'm not making this tutorial for me, I know how to make the skirt. I'm making it for you. You want to make the skirt, okay? This is how you do it. Right, so you got all your pattern pieces, and what we're going to do is we're now going to cut out the pattern pieces against the fabric. And to be honest, oftentimes I'll split out a task, I'll split out the project into 2 days. One day is going to be sorting out the pattern, and then the next day is just going to be sewing, and it helps stress you out way less, okay? So if you're already a little bit frazzled by making the pattern, you think it's really hard, we're going to do this bit, we're going to cut out the pattern pieces, and then maybe come back tomorrow and let's do the actual sewing of the skirt, okay? This is my fabric. I got it from a local shop in London. I don't think it's available online, I'm not sure. It's a check fabric, very nice, and it doesn't really seem to have a right side and a wrong side, but your fabric might. So what you want to do is kind of look at your fabric, study it, see which way do you think is going to look nicer on the outside of your garment, which side do you think is on the inside, maybe one side's more rough, one side's more smooth, have a feel of it. I think that this is the right side of the fabric, so I'm just going to say let's go right side up with your fabric. Also, this is like a check print. These kinds of prints of fabric often need something called pattern matching, which is where you basically, when you're sewing your garment, you want all of the lines to line up all the way around, and when you're trying to pattern match something, you're going to want to, it will usually end up taking a little bit more fabric up. So I actually have no idea how much fabric this skirt takes. I'm going to try and figure it out. I usually just buy like, I don't know, 2 meters of any fabric I buy just to make sure I've got enough to sew something. It's usually way too much, but you should be fine if you buy 2 meters. Right, so piece A and C. What you're going to do is you're going to place it onto your fabric. I usually actually wouldn't place it right in the middle, that's wasteful. Place it near the edge. And we're going to sew we're going to cut using our sewing scissors, fabric scissors. These are usually way sharper, really good for cutting fabric. If you don't have them, just use normal scissors and try your best. It's okay if it's a bit jaggedy, because all of the jaggedy bits will be on the inside of your garment in the end when it's finished. So should be fine, you know, as long as it looks good on the outside, you're fine. So here you are with piece A and C, and what we're going to do is one side is going to be cut with the pattern facing this way, and then you're going to cut your second piece, so C is going to be cut with your pattern facing wrong way around, back to front, so you have 2 mirror image pieces of pattern, okay? So what you might want to do is pin your pattern onto your fabric. I really don't usually do that, but I'm quite erratic when I sew, so my methods are unorthodox sometimes. What I'm going to try and do is for each of my pieces, I'm just going to try and match them up to this black bar at the bottom, I suppose. Now, very important, don't forget this, when you're cutting your this is the worst camera angle of my life. When you're cutting out, what you're going to want to do is just cut maybe, how far, like, depending on how confident you are as a sewer and as a pattern cutter and everything, you're going to want to cut something called seam allowance, and this is basically the pieces of fabric that are going to be showing on the inside, because you need 2 pieces together to sew and then turn inside out. You're going to need to hem them so it doesn't fray. So basically I would say like 2 centimeters of seam allowance, like not very much, like just a kind of little bit, just so you have enough to finish the edge of the fabric and then also to sew it to your other piece of fabric. So is that like 3/4 of an inch? It really is up to you. I'm just going to cut around it a bit and I'm sure it's going to be fine, okay? And there you go. This is your first piece of fabric cut out. You can see the small amount of seam allowance that I've left around it, and this is your first piece of fabric. So then, as I said, take your original piece, flip it over, and then cut around. And if your pattern is like mine, or your piece is like mine where you have all of these lines, try your best to match them up, but if you don't get it perfect, it's probably going to be fine, honestly. And there you go, you have pieces A and C, left and right. Now we're going to do that for one piece of B, and then the exact same that you just did for A and C, so left and right for D and E. Here are all our pattern pieces. So there is 2 pieces of A and C. You can see here is like a mirror image. Left hand side of A and right hand side is C. Then we have piece B here just by itself, and then we have pieces D and E. Just a note, but on the side, so like the centerfold side of D and E, leave a little bit extra fabric. I actually kind of forgot to do it, but I think it'll be fine. Leave a little bit extra fabric on this side, maybe like an extra seam allowance, because this is the side that the zip is going to go into, and you're going to want to make sure you've got enough fabric to work with to do the zip. And you'll know which is the center side because one side will be straight and one side will have a curve. So this side, leave a little bit extra to put in the zip. For cutting out that pattern for my size of body, it took a piece of fabric that was 25 inches by 60 inches. So if you're looking to buy fabric, you don't know how much to buy, that's how much it will take to make my skirt and to cut out these pattern pieces. There's also one final piece of pattern that you're going to cut out, but I don't think you need a pattern for it, it's super easy. It's basically your waist, your kind of waist measurement. So mine was 25 inches all the way around, right? So you're going to want to take that and then basically just make a piece that is 25 inches long or however long your waist is, and then like, oh my god, and then have it be like 2 or 3 inches deep. And then this is going to be just a small piece of waistband that will go inside the skirt and give it a little bit more rigidity around your waistband. So you're going to want to cut out a piece like that, and then maybe just add in an extra inch. We'll make sure you just add your seam allowance as usual, basically. And here you go, here is your long strip of fabric. Mine was like 3 inches deep and then about 25, 26, 27, I would say maybe 27 or 28 inches long, just to make sure I've got enough to fit in the zip. And also if I'm going to cut it in half or anything like that, I've got enough for the seam allowances. Here are all of the pattern pieces laid out. So you can see A, B, C, D, E, and the optional upper waistband piece. I just took a little break because my brain was super fried because we had to do maths, we had to do making a massive piece of paper, we had to do cutting out, we had to do mirror images in your mind. Mental maths is all difficult, more difficult than you think. So we're done, the hard part is over. Now we're going to move on to the constructing and the sewing. So what you're going to do is take every single piece that we've just cut out. There should be 6 pieces in total, or 5 if you're not doing the waistband. The waistband is completely optional, by the way. I just do it because that's how the original Brandy skirt is constructed, but you really don't have to do it. So you're going to take every single piece of fabric, and what we're going to do is finish the edges. So you can see this edge here is a loose edge. It has fraying bits of fabric. If you pull it, it will come apart. Basically, if you don't finish your edges, then your garments are more likely to fall apart over time. And finishing your edges means that that won't happen. So I have a sewing machine, completely separate sewing machine called a serger or an overlocker, and this is how the shops do it, right? So let me just show you. So you can see on the inside of this pair of jeans, you can see this is loads and loads of little bits of thread that are catching and covering up the edges, and this means that it will not fray. Now this special technique is done using a machine called a serger or an overlocker. They cost, I think, between like 150 to 200 pounds. I have one because I used to make clothes commercially for sale for people, and it speeds things up a lot. And what it does is it catches all of the edges, and it also cuts off the excess fabric when you use it. I'm going to use that today, but if you don't have one, that's completely fine. You can still make garments just fine. Your sewing machine might have a special stitch that replicates an overlocker stitch but probably doesn't cut whilst it sews. If you've got a quite good machine, it will have a special stitch that looks like overlocking, but if not, then you can use something called a zigzag stitch, and this is just a stitch which basically takes a thread in a zigzag shape and it will do the same kind of thing where it will basically just cover up all of the loose edges on your fabric and it'll make sure that it doesn't fray. And what you're going to want to do is either zigzag or serge every single loose edge that you can find. You find a loose edge, you zigzag it. It's quite fun because it's basically just a lot of like sewing in a straight line, sewing in a straight line, like nothing can go wrong at this stage, okay? So enjoy, and let's speak when we've done all of our edges and they're all overlocked. Wow, the sun is so bright. So this is what it looks like now. Here's all my pieces. Top band, 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, D and E, and you can see each of the edges is all overlocked and they all look really nice and professional. Now I forgot to mention, you should actually have ironed your fabric before even cutting it. Did I do that? No, I did not. Why not? Because nobody's perfect. It wasn't that creased, but basically you should really be ironing your garments. But look, today we're trying to make a skirt. That's already a lot of work, okay? Let alone ironing. So it's up to you. If you're all about doing it the right way, iron your stuff loads whilst doing it, and also before you even cut out your pieces. But you can live on the wild side like me. Now, do you remember when I immediately stopped all the process and confused everybody? Because for pieces D and E, I said, oh, add 2.5 inches to the top, like the top of it. So this is this piece, and you can see it's basically a straight line up here because we made the top 2.5 inches longer than it needed to be, and this is because we're going to make some darts. So what you have now basically is 2.5 inches of fabric in which you can kind of do, I would say that we're going to do 2 darts, and a dart is like a triangular piece of fabric. Well, you're turning your fabric into little triangles, right? So God, I wish I was good at tutorials. Okay, so you're going to basically make a little triangle here, and then you're going to pick up the fabric inside of that triangle and sew it down, and it's going to mean that your fabric now on the other side comes in a bit. And this, as I mentioned to you, is going to help to be really nice and fitted around the contours of your bomb, alright? So the measurements, I'm not sure what they are yet. I'm going to let you know what I do and then you can kind of figure it out. But basically what you need to do is just do darts big enough that the top side, like this top length of your fabric, is 2.5 inches smaller and is back to that original measurement that you had calculated for the top edge of piece D/E. Okay? Okay, so here's my top edge and it is coming in at 10 inches. So we want to basically take it down 2.5 inches smaller. Now you need to figure out which side is the center side. So this is the center. So this is going to be where your zip is going to come in. This is like the outer edge of the skirt that's going to attach around your hip. You can kind of see. And so what you're going to do is you need your pins for this. Pick up a piece of fabric, or maybe actually, okay, so put in your pin like just there. How far is that for me? This is about just over 2 inches in from my center line where the zip is going to go. And then I'm going to measure maybe just over 1 inch, take another pin and put it in the top as well. And it's not really doing anything at the moment. So you got 2 pins, you got one here and one here. I know you probably all had expectations this was going to be a super aesthetic sewing tutorial. It's not, okay? You're just getting what you're given at the moment. Now what you're going to do is, that's about 1 inch, okay. So then we can also go a little bit further along, let's say maybe, so remember that's just over 2 inches in for the first pin, and then it's just over 1 inch for the second pin. Then let's measure another just over 1 inch again, and then we'll do 1 pin here. Let's say about here. And then we'll do again just over 1 inch for our second pin. And then I'm just going to measure downwards from the top to about, let's say these darts are going to go about 3.5 inches down from the top. So what I'm just going to do is put a pin 3.5 inches down, just to kind of make me aware that this is how far down I want my darts to go. In fact, I could even put this pin over here. It's just kind of like a little guideline and a reminder. So what you're going to now do is make sure that you are working on the wrong side of your fabric. Am I working on the wrong side of my fabric? I am working on the wrong side of my fabric. Okay, great. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick up your fabric, and then this is the wrong side of your fabric, remember, and you're going to take this pin and bring them together. And you can take a new pin and just kind of have them together at the top. And then you can pin that bit of fabric together. So now you can see it is together. And then coming down to about here, right, so that's where we made the marker of, that's how long we want them to go, like how far down we want them to go. You're just going to kind of gently pick up that part of the fabric, or try and make it as even as possible actually. So basically you want to be picking up the bit of fabric that's right in between the two of them. Take another pin and just do a tiny little pick up there, and that's going to be like the bottom of your dart. And then if you hold both of them together, you can even fold it on itself, you see that here, this is basically like a line. You can imagine a line here, and then just take another pin and just do a pin in the middle along that line. And this line of pins is what you're going to sew along to make your dart. And then we have the same happening here. So again, just pick them up, put them together, and there you have your top of the dart. A lot of this is just practice and just doing it so many times and failing so many times that eventually you just know how to do it because you remember and you learned through trial and error, which I think is the best way to learn. Okay, so down about, remember our dart ends here for the other one, so we want it to end in a similar place. Doesn't have to be perfect, seriously. Take another pin. Sorry it's so dark, the sun's gone. And now along this line is where you're going to put another pin. And now you can see, when I turn the fabric this way around, you can see that it kind of just shapes it, and when we sew it and iron it, it's going to be really nice and flat, but it will have this shape to it. And then when you turn it this way around, what we're going to do is take the measure. So originally this was supposed to be 6 inches, we added 2.5 inches to make it 8.5 inches. We also have seam allowance, remember, and a little bit more seam allowance than usual for the zip. So I'm just going to measure along the top now, loosely, and this is about 7 inches, which I think is about right. If it's meant to be 6 inches, then we've got this seam allowance all around plus a bit extra for the zip. So I'm really happy with that, and we're just going to do the exact same on the other piece of fabric for the back. So piece D and E are going to have the same darts in the same places. It started raining, the sun's gone in, I've got artificial light on the go in terms of an ugly yellow bulb. So sorry for the aesthetics of this video, they're not going to be very good, but sacrificing aesthetics for practicality, I think we're going to be alright. So here is your darts on your fabric, and what you're going to do is basically you're going to fold your fabric in half along the dart kind of thing. Do you know what I just did there? You see this, you pick the dart, you fold it, you put everything else away, we're just working with this, and you're going to sew along the line from the top pin place to the bottom pin place. Okay, and you're going to just use a normal straight stitch on your machine and it's going to be fine, okay? Some people are really powerful and can sew with needles in, but I'm not, because if you sew with needles in, your needle can break, and I don't want that to happen to me. Do you see that this is now just a little row of stitches along here, and you can see it's like a little pocket And we're going to do that now for this dart as well. It's really easy. This is super quick and simple. There you have it. There are your darts, and you can see on the other side they look like this. And we're just going to sew again on the other piece of fabric where we made the other darts. Now if you're a really good person, you're going to iron these darts flat. I'm not, so I'm not going to do that, but it will just make it look a little bit more professional. What I will say is a must though, and this is because it's a habit that I'm trying to force myself into, is you need to trim off all of the little excess threads that are at the bottom and the top of all of your stitches as soon as you've done them, because when you try and do it at the end, sometimes you can't reach certain ones, and it'll just make your garments look a lot more professional, a lot more finished if they're not covered in like little loose threads hanging down. So once you've done your darts, cut off the loose threads, and then we're going to get on to actually constructing the rest of the skirt. Actually, you know what? I think we're going to put in the zipper now. I think it's going to be a lot easier. Usually I put it in at the end, but I think let's do it now. So this is the length of zipper that I have. Also, one of my top sewing tips is go online and buy yourself a bulk pack of like 10 to 20 zippers of ideally varying sizes. If not, get some longer ones, because you can always shorten a longer zip, but you can never lengthen a shorter zip, and most garments you make will probably need a zip of some form, so it's just really good to have them in your sewing basket rather than having to order something, wait 3 days to finish your garment. It's just there and it's immediately available to you. So this zip is 9 inches long. It's the same length as the ones in the Brandy skirts. If you have bigger hips and a smaller waist, you might want to get a slightly longer zip. Just if you ever have trouble getting things over your hips, then a longer zip will be a really much easier way to do that, but still be able to have garments that come in tight in your waist. So yeah, a longer zip, why not? Like, you could even have it zip all the way down to the bottom of the skirt. It's entirely up to you, and it won't really make much of a difference to the finish. Right. These two pieces that you've just put darts into, the back pieces, piece D and E, what you're going to do is you're going to take the center line, which is the straight piece. So you have done your 2 darts and you've measured the top. You know that the top is the right length now, and you have the bottom. This is the piece which curves out, so that's going to attach to the side of the skirt. This is the piece that is straight, and this is going to be the center back of the skirt, and you'll have 2 center backs for each of your piece D and piece E of your fabric. Now, take your zip, measure basically how far down does your zip go, and then what you're going to do is you're just going to make a note of how long that is in distance. So from the part which doesn't have the zip attached to it, so this is the bottom of your skirt, this side here, this is the bottom of your skirt, this is like the middle of it, this is the bottom of the zip. So what you're going to do is take wrong sides together, take the 2 center backs of your 2 back pieces D and E, and you're going to sew with a normal straight stitch all the way along here, and then you're going to stop when you get to the measurement and the little mark that you're going to make here, or you could even put a pin in or whatever it is to just remind you to stop there, okay? And that is as far as you're going to sew. Then once you've sewn up to there, you're going to, the zip is actually not even part of this conversation right now, the zip is on the floor. Wrong sides together still, you're going to then sew in a long straight stitch. So you're going to change your stitch length on your machine to be a longer stitch, or you can even just get a hand sewing a needle and do loose long stitches. So it's kind of still attached together, but it's not very well attached together. So change your stitch length to a long stitch, and then you're going to sew from the point that you just finished all the way up to the top. So you're sealing up the back completely. Okay, so here we go. This is the mark where my zip ends. I've pinned together both of the sides. Right sides together. I'm just going to sew up the bottom here, and make sure you're sewing with your seam allowance, so you can be slightly generous, but I'm just going to sew to basically the width of my foot on my machine. You can see I've come up to my needle, so as soon as I get to my needle, stop, do a reverse, like back stitch, just to make sure that my threads don't come undone. Then I'm going to cut the threads. My machine's great and it cuts my threads for me, but if not, you just get your scissors and cut your threads. And then now what you'll do is you'll actually just pop it back on the machine. Probably didn't even need to take it out, to be honest. Yep, so that's where I got up to. Right, pop ourselves back onto the machine. We're going to change our stitch length. So on my machine, you do it through this. So I can just go, so that's my stitch width and this is my stitch length, so the longest I can do it is 5mm. And off we go, and we just add in our basting stitch. Okay, so here we have our back of the skirt. You can see on the inside there's the dots and everything, there's the back seam, and you can see on the other side. Wow, the pattern matching really did something there, right? So what we're going to do now is you're going to take, you see here, focus. Okay, so you can see this is your seam, and if you open up your seam, you can make it all flat like this, right? You're going to open up your seam all the way to the point where you changed your stitch width. Okay, so you're going to try and make it nice and flat, and actually if you're doing ironing, then you're going to want to iron this seam flat. So if you know about sewing, you're basically just going to put in an invisible zip. If not, I'm going to try and quickly explain, but as I said, you can always go onto YouTube and search for people who are going to spend 10 minutes like properly explaining it to you, but I'm just going to do it quickly, right? So here's your zipper. You can see this is the side that zips, and then the other side does not have a zip pull on it. You're going to put it face down into your valley of your seam, and what you're going to do is you're going to take your pins and you're going to pin each side of the fabric tape down onto the fabric. So you're attaching the zip with pins, and you're going to try and keep the whole like kind of zipper. You can sometimes even adjust where the zipper is, kind of the head of the zipper is at, to make sure you're going to get it precisely down exactly where you want it. You're just going to put your zip. Okay, and there you go, look, so now the zip is pinned in all the way along, right? And you can see on the other side it is just a closed seam, and what's going to happen is we're going to sew in this zip on either side, and then we're going to cut all of these stitches open, and it's going to reveal the zip inside, and it's going to be invisible when it's closed. It's going to be amazing, and once you learn how to do this, you're going to be so pleased with yourself, and you can make zips and put them in everything, okay? So your sewing machine might come with a zipper foot. My zipper foot looks like this, and my normal sewing machine foot looks like this. So this one obviously is a lot smaller, so it won't get in the way as much as this one, which is really good for holding fabrics down. For this one you need to be really precise with your sewing and get really close to like the thick zip, which if your needle goes through the zip it will probably break. So you want to avoid going and sewing the actual zip, but you want to get really close to it, and so this foot is really good for that. I believe that all sewing machines will come with a zipper foot. If they don't, I don't know what you're going to do. Maybe hand sew your zip in, that's an option. What you're going to do is take your fabric and your zip and everything. You're going to do a deep breath, okay? You're going to line everything up, and then you're going to try and sew really close to the actual zip, but not on the zip itself. You might just want to go nice and slow for this bit as well. Oh, make sure to change your stitch length back to what it was. So that is 1/2 of your zip attached, and now you just need to do the other half. I might do it upside down, I'm not really sure. I feel like there's a way to make it easier to do it like this, but I'm just going to do it like this. And there you go. So now you can see on the back of the zip you're all sewn in. Mine always look a little bit wonky on the inside, but you know what? I think it's going to be fine. Had a bit of pasta, had a little break, had a little chocolate bar. This sewing stuff can just be a little bit draining sometimes, okay? But we left off with our zipper was attached in, right? So the last step is, what you want to do is get one of these things. It's called a stitch ripper. If you don't have one, or a stitch unpicker, I don't know what you want to call this, but it's something like that. If you don't have one, you can just use your little scissors or anything you have that's going to be really neat and precise. And what we're going to do, we're going to take the stitch unripper and we're going to unpick the seams that we put in, and this is like the loose ones with the long stitch, and because it's a long stitch it means it's going to be really easy to unpick. Okay, and look at this. Now you have your invisible zip. And you can see when it's all done up, the zip basically is not really visible. It is an invisible zip. And then there'll be all these little threads. You just want to like kind of pick them all out. Again, this is making your garment look much more professional once it's all finished. And there you go, and your zip is attached. And you see it didn't even really take up that much fabric from your edge, you know? So you just need to get confident with it, keep trying your best, like keep, you know, obviously just doing it, and if it fails you can always just unpick it, like take it out, try again. If you buy more fabric, often the reason why I buy so much fabric to make really small garments is just because then I know, hey look, if I mess it up, if I cut my pieces out wrong, it's fine, I can just cut them again, I can just try again, and it's all gonna be fine. So there you go. That is your invisible zip thing. Alright, so next step, we are going to turn up the corners of the front of the skirt to make some slits that are going to be on your thighs, right? So what you want to do is just take a little measurement. Let's say going up about 3 inches I'm going to do mine. So I'm just going to make a little pin here so I know how high up that is. Actually it's by this black mark really, isn't it? This black part of my fabric. So yeah, alright, so I know where that's going up to. And basically you're just going to want to turn your fabric in a little triangle like this. So you've got a little triangle tucked away. I'm just going to pin the edges. And that's what it should look like. So you just literally just take the fabric, take the corner of the fabric underneath, and do that for the bottom 2 corners of piece B and the inner corners, so the corners that are going to be with the straight edges that are facing inwards on piece A and C as well. So I'm just going to do that for all of them. Okay, there you go, you've got all of your corners turned under. Maybe just check by measuring from the top edge down that they'll kind of be happening at the same place-ish. Looks like that to me. Okay, so your next step is going to be, you're going to take each one of these corners and you're just going to sew it down. So just make sure that you're sewing 1 centimetre maybe just 1 centimetre away from the edge of the fold. And again, if you're really good, you're going to iron these. I'm not ironing them because I don't want to get the iron out. The ironing board is just quite a big deal to get it out sometimes, you know? Okay, so the little triangles are sewn under, so make sure you trim your threads, and then we can move on to actually pretty much one of the most final steps of the process, which is going to be constructing the skirt and sewing the sides together. Alright, okay, so you can see here is your front piece. This is B and here is A and C, and what you're going to do is right sides, oh there's a really long thread on this one. See you later, mate. Right, what you're going to do is you're going to take B and C and right sides together. You are going to attach, so from the top, and do everything from the top seam this time please. We're going to take our pins and we're just going to pin all the way along from the top to and then on the other side do the same, right sides together. And then now you're going to sew along the needles that you have placed, and you're going to stop. So when you come to your little triangles that you've made, just kind of sew straight down in a straight line, so you kind of just come, I don't know, I guess like come off it, or like you just don't sew the actual triangles together, okay? Leave them open. So you're going to finish sewing more or less about here, and then when you open it up on the other side, you'll see these little triangles appear and it's going to look really pretty. So let's sew that now. Alright, look at that. That is the front of your skirt done. Oh my god. And if you want, you can kind of come in and keep checking the measurements to make sure that you're like on track with what you wrote out. So these are supposed to be 1.5 inch for me. This is 2 inches, so I can probably take this side in a little bit more, or maybe at the top I'll just bring it in a little bit more depending on what's this one. This is meant to be 10 inches. That's perfectly 10, so that's done really well. And then this one here, this is just over 1.5, so that's pretty perfect. So it's really good to keep checking things like this. And then if we go 7.5 inches down here, and then this is supposed to be 11 across at this point, and it is perfectly 11, which is great. This one is supposed to be 3.5, and it is, which is great. And then over here as well, this one is supposed to be 3.5, which it is. So this is coming together really well. The bottom here for me, you can't measure the bottom actually at the moment because you have the little triangles. So, but I'm sure it's fine. Right, now we're going to go on to the next step, and I need to change my camera's battery. Alright, so you have your front piece here and you have your back piece here. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it right sides together. So put it zip side down on here, and then all you're going to do is pin together each side, and then we pretty much have got a skirt, guys. This is so exciting. Alright, there we go. So you can see that the entire thing now is pinned together on both sides. So now I'm just going to sew along both sides. So by this point you actually have something that you can try on, which is so exciting. So your bottom edge, basically what we need to do now is we're going to put in that little waistband on the inside just to kind of tighten it in a little bit, and we're going to hem the bottom of the skirt, but then it's basically done. And this is a really good time as well actually if you want to make any more small minor adjustments. Mine's actually a little bit big, which is fine because it's better than it being too small. So I might take in maybe I'll take in more at the side seams or something, or do something with the dots, or maybe I'll just leave it, to be honest. It doesn't look so bad at all. So I'm really pleased with how this has come together so far, and hopefully if you're at this stage, hopefully if you're at this stage too, you're really pleased as well, and we're almost at the finish line, which is so exciting. Okay, so what I decided to do, because it was a little bit big, is I just did another row of stitches a little bit closer in on either side, and that's helped quite a lot. So what you can do after you've done that basically is, if this is too bulky now that you've got quite a big seam allowance, you can always serge along up to the stitches that you've done if you have a serger, or you can do a new level of zigzags and then just trim off some of the bulk. It's entirely up to you, but you can also just leave it as it is, to be honest. It's probably not going to be that bulky anyway. Right, so next step we are going to make this little waistband piece, which is inside. This is a single piece of fabric. Their one is like beautifully like turned in on the zip and like attached to the zip. I'm not doing that because the zip's already in there. We're not taking it out now. It's hard enough getting it in the first place. So all you want to do is take your piece of fabric. I think your fabric might be a little bit too long, just as mine is, but that is completely fine. So what you can do is, how are we doing this, everybody? Right, I think what we're gonna do is, okay, so you're gonna want to find where the halfway point is. Just gonna put a little pin in so I know where it is. And then do the same with the front piece of your skirt. So I can just do that from each side seam, bring them together, then pull it out. That is the halfway point of my skirt for the front side of it. Put a pin in here, and then what we can do is right sides together. We are going to go pin to pin and attach your pin into the fabric, and then you basically are just going to, all around the inside of your skirt, just keep pinning this waistband inside, and this gives it a bit more reinforcement so that the top of your skirt doesn't wrinkle with your belly, because obviously your belly moves around when you sit down, when you stand up. This gives it a little bit more reinforcement so it won't be as kind of moving around whilst you're wearing it. And also kind of just, I don't know, it keeps like the skirt like together a little bit more. If your bit is too long, you can just kind of, you see this is as far as I can get because my zip is here and this is all like excess. So what I'm probably just going to do is fold it back on itself like this to just meet the where the zip line goes up to, and I'm just going, okay, and then I'm going around the inside of the other side and do the same thing. Okay, now that is all pinned to the inside of my waistband, you can see. What I'm actually going to do is for these bits which are quite long, I mean if you wanted you can just cut this off or do whatever. What I'm going to just do quickly is I'm going to sew along this side separately, so I'm not sewing it to anything, just free and independent. I'm going to sew this part and then I'm just going to sew it back on itself so it attaches to this, so it's not going to be flapping around, okay? And then I will meet you after I've done that. Okay, I've just done that. I've just sewn literally here and here and then here and here, and they're not like flapping around and loose anymore. So now all that's left to do is we're going to just sew all around where we put the pins, all around the circumference of the skirt. Sometimes it can help to remove this part of your machine. Usually it will always come away, and this is really good if you're sewing around a circle because you can put your skirt or your fabric underneath the machine and it might help it just kind of freely move a little bit more easily. You can also just unzip your skirt to help reach everything a little bit easier. Right, make sure that you're sewing. Decide which direction you want your dots to be sewn down and make sure they both go the same way. I'm going to sew them this way. And then make sure that all of your stitches are happening, make sure you're giving yourself room between your zigzags or your serged edge and your free edge, and you're just kind of bringing it down so that those stitches aren't going to show through when you turn it inside out. Also, your skirt might be different kind of heights at the top, so maybe some of your panels have been attached a little bit funny and one bit is higher than the other. It's fine, just kind of make sure that you're following the lowest panel so it's not too up and down. Make sure when you come back towards the other end that everything is laying flat and your darts are going the opposite direction to the ones that you just did. Make sure you trim off all of your little threads again, as we've been so good making this garment. Now what we're doing is we're just taking our little waistband and turning it on the inside, yeah? So what you're going to need to do, okay, we are going to need to get the iron out I think, but essentially what you need to do is take your waistband, make sure it's inside, and then we're going to iron all around it so it sits nice and flat. And then actually what we should probably do is catch these bits down with the sewing machine as well, so just sew straight down here and straight down here by your zip to make sure that it stays inside. And then we're going to hem it. So I'm going to hem it now I think, and then I'll do the ironing. Okay, so that makes sense to me. Alright, so to hem it is super easy, literally just fold up the bottom and sew, okay? You can pin it, you don't have to pin it. You probably should pin it if you've not sewn much before, but if you live on the wild side. Oh yeah, see sometimes like your fabric, like for some reason you're just going to have like a bit of a wobbly edge like that. Doesn't matter, just either cut it off or fold it up so everything matches, or even sometimes you need to do it on like a weird little angle like this. It usually looks alright when it's on, to be honest. Yeah, you can see some of the pieces don't exactly match up, but you know, that's happened on mine, might happen on yours as well. You just gotta be prepared for these things. Right, let's do the hem. Alright, we're here at the iron. I tried to avoid it as much as I could, but we are here. This is how things are going. Sometimes it's unavoidable. Now, if you don't have an iron, what I would possibly recommend is this. See, you see it's quite just, it's a bit like bulgy, it like doesn't really sit flat properly. What I would probably say is for this top waistband, try and get it as flat as you can, and then just do a line of stitches as close to the top as you can, like maybe just like really close up to the top, and then that should keep the waistband down and inside. But if you have an iron like me, then you're stuck doing it the proper way. So all you're going to do is change your iron setting to something suitable for the fabric you're on. This is like quite a plasticky one, so I'm not really sure. I'm just going to go for a semi-low heat and then hope for the best. And then we're going to just kind of try and have the front side of the fabric, like the outside of your skirt, mainly on the top rather than like this bulgy part coming up. It should mainly just be all about this part is going to be seen on the outside, okay? But you just got to try your best. Everybody, we're done. The skirt is completely finished. I'm so excited. I'm gonna go and try it on. Look how cute. Here we are, everybody. Here's the skirt, and oh my goodness, I'm so pleased with it. I think it looks so cute. I see my pattern matching. I did my best pretty much all the way around, but this side, just here, and I think what happened was basically this piece of fabric, this was not cut straight properly, so you can see that it doesn't quite match up, but you know, it's all about actually just making the skirt, not worrying too much about anything in particular. Look how nice the slits look. Obviously you can make them even higher if you wanted that kind of look. You can see the darts at the back and the effect that they give in terms of pulling in the, you know, waist a little bit more, and then giving yourself that more kind of shape for your bum to come out. I know I've not made videos in like a really long time, and I don't really plan on coming back to it, to be honest, that much, but I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial and you maybe learned something. If you make this skirt, please show me. Please send me a picture of it, even if you don't post it publicly, just like send me a private message or something on Instagram and show me the skirt that you made, because I would be so excited to see it. If you have any questions, as I said, about the pattern or any of it, like constructing, if it's all going wrong, just send me a message. I'll try and like sort it out for you. I hope you feel inspired to sew. I found it a really like cathartic hobby that's been with me through most of my life, and it's just something that I really enjoy and find that it helps take my mind off things. So if you've been tempted to ever start sewing, then now's the perfect time. There are some really affordable sewing machines out there as well, so hopefully it's not too much of an investment to get started on your first projects. I've tried so many times in the past to try and like film or make like sewing tutorials, and this is the first one I've ever done. I find it really hard to do. Like there's just so many, it takes, like sewing takes a really long time, like a good few hours, and that's a long time to be filming, and then a long time to be setting up your camera angles, let alone trying to make it look all aesthetic and everything. So I don't think I can do those like amazing like lo-fi sewing videos, that kind of thing. Like it's just, oh, this was hard enough, okay? But I really hope that it was helpful, and I'm really excited to see what you guys make. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you over on Instagram.